What's up, guys? Chris here from the Rule of Thirds, doing my sort of spoiler review of Jupiter's Legacy. I did, my initial kind of thoughts. Like I said, I just finished it a day or so ago. All in all, I was pleased with it. I've heard some mixed reviews, and I understand it. And I think one fatal thing happened with this series is it came out right after Invincible. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you, Jupiter's Legacy is not Invincible. We may get together and do a review of Invincible because I think it needs to be done. But this is not Invincible. That's the first spoiler. If you're coming into this series and you've watched Invincible, I could see where you would be disappointed. Absolutely. If someone led you to believe that this is anything like Invincible because of the whole family dynamic, I can see where you will be disappointed. If someone told you that the fight scenes are graphic and full of blood and guts and all that kind of stuff, and you watched Invincible, I can see where you're going to be disappointed. Jupiter's Legacy is not Invincible. With that being said, I think if it came out prior to Invincible, it would have been received better, and I think it would have made Invincible that much more, if that makes sense. But that often happens when you have two series or two ideas of the same sort of genre come out around the same time. And with streaming and the way it is right now, this could happen again. Not throwing shade on either of the two series, but I can see where if you've seen Invincible and you were just completely blown away by that, where you're going to be disappointed by Jupiter's Legacy. However, I would say go into it with an open mind, because it does something, and the way it sort of fills in the gaps, I think, is done really well. To get in some of the backstory, you have Sheldon Sampson and Walter Sampson, who are brothers, who were fathers of a steel tycoon in the years leading up to the Great Depression. Their father essentially kills himself. He haunts Sheldon, which leads him on this sort of voyage to find something that would essentially bring him peace and other members that he's close to. I want to jump back and forth here a little bit just because the story jumps back and forth. Yes, they ultimately become superheroes, all that kind of stuff. I'll dig a little deeper into that. But, you see sort of the beginning of his sort of tragic event, the death of his father, the Great Depression, sort of his own downfall mentally. He's having these visions and dreams and hearing voices and all these kind of things. Essentially, people close to him, family, friends, essentially write him off that he's just gone nuts, okay? You see that beginning stages, and you see years later, 90 years later, to where he's an aged, well-established, maybe the most famous superhero on Earth, known as the Utopian. You see him with his wife, Lady Liberty. You see him essentially as a failed father with two kids, Chloe and Brandon, Brandon, and I see that dynamic with the Invincible with the father and son, but it's not the same. Keep that in mind. You see Brandon trying to live up to the expectation, of his mother and father. You see Chloe, who essentially has rebelled and wants nothing to do with any of them. She is angry. She's resentful. She feels that her mother and father have essentially put their superhero careers and saving the world and put all that above being a good mother and father and raising their kids right. So you see a lot of rebellion in her. You see a lot of hate. Both the kids do have superpowers. You run into Walter and Age Walter, who is doing what he can to help his brother go through this sort of changing of the times. The same code that has essentially helped this Union of Justice, and I'm trying to think of all the names here, guys. Help me. There's the Utopian. There's Lady Liberty, Brainwave, Skyfox, Blue Bolt, and oh god, Fitz is his name, but I can't think of I can't think of his name. Somebody help me out here. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Hang on. What do they call him? Oh, this is gonna bug me. But anyway, superheroes, they call themselves the Union of Justice. Is it a knockoff of the Justice League? Hell, what group isn't? Is it a knockoff of the Avengers? The Avengers, hell, what group isn't? So you have to kind of deal with that. But I wasn't a fan, and I'm just be honest, I wasn't a fan with the whole sort of Chloe dynamic, her rebellion. The scenes with her doing all this damn coke and snorting all this shit up her nose and just literally doing everything she can to kill herself. I wasn't a whole fan of that. I mean, look, I get the fact, the whole she hates her parents and she wants nothing to do with them, and she's a model. She's trying to do everything she can to not be recognized as one of the kids of a superhero. She's doing everything she can. She's partying, she's drinking, she's having sex, all this kind of stuff. And it's just like, okay, well, sooner or later, when are you, going to put all that stuff aside and, realize that, hey, your life doesn't have to be determined by how you were raised. Grow the fuck up. That's all I'm saying. You know what I mean? So yeah, as steadfast and determined as she is to hate her parents, it's just like, okay, well, you're not even, you won't even accept the fact that you got to grow up. If you don't want to be a superhero, cool, grow up. You know what I mean? But you see all these scenes where she's having sex and she's banging all these guys and doing all this damn coke, and it that to me just got annoying. Brandon's doing everything he can to live up to his father, but he's not his dad. His dad has all these expectations. His dad is looking for him to essentially replace him one day, so he's working extra hard, and it's just not clicking. An interesting scene happened where there's this big fight scene. One of their foes, their villains, escapes from prison, Black Star, and they have this big fight with Black Star, and Brandon goes off and kills Black Star and pretty much saves his dad from dying or getting severely beat up. And Brandon breaks the number one code: we don't kill people in the Union of Justice. And it's just like, well, wait, okay, wait a minute, but are you just going to let him die? You know what I mean? Your job is to save the day. Yes, you have a code, and you start to see, especially with Sheldon, where this code that he's lived by essentially just isn't working for the times. You know what I mean? There's all these younger superheroes around. He's trying to do the best he can to lead an example, but there's younger kids who are getting killed, and people are looking at him like, hey, you need to change the code. The code's not working. He's like, no, the code's the only thing we have. The code is what separates us from being dictators and all this kind of stuff. And so you see that sort of internal battle with him. You see it even spill over into his relationship with his wife. You see it spill over into his relationship with his brother Walter. You know, and I wish they would have. I kind of wish instead of the whole Chloe stuff and the whole Brandon, like he puts Brandon on like punishments, which was kind of stupid. I wish they would have dove more into maybe the husband and wife having a lot more back and forth about the code, maybe the group coming together, and having issues, or not issues but talks, and just kind of working it out. You have Sky Fox. Sky Fox, you don't really see a whole lot, except in the flashbacks. George, who was one of Sheldon's closest friends. George was one of the ones who, when Sheldon back during the Depression after his father died, kind of really latched onto him and was like, "Hey, I know what you're going through." Sheldon had lost his parents, so they had that sort of bond when it comes to traumatic experiences. Later down the road, with this whole code thing, essentially they sort of kind of outcast or blackballed Sky Fox. He becomes like one of their greatest enemies. You don't really get a whole lot about that. I wish they would have done more with that, and maybe we'll see if there's a season 2. But I definitely enjoyed the connection that George and Samson had in the flashbacks. I thought that was really cool. I think that's going to make, if they do it, for a very, very emotional transition to when they become bitter enemies. Let's just kind of go back to this, because I enjoyed not so much the present day stuff, guys. I enjoyed the flashback stuff. I think that 20s, 30s, and 40s kind of pop culture time. The comic books on the radio and things like that. That was a time that I've kind of dove into. What was that? The Silver Age of comic books, Golden Age. Help me out, guys. I forget. But you had characters. The Shadow always comes to mind. Maybe, let's see, who else can I think of? The Phantom. Zorro, those kind of characters. That's from when this time frame is flashing back to. But anyway, you see the struggles that Sheldon is having after the passing of his father. You see the sort of relationship kind of hindering and almost dwindling between him and his brother Walter. You see him latching on to George. You see he meets essentially his former wife. She's a editor at the newspaper, where they essentially printed some, really graphic information about his father and his father's legacy, that kind of thing. So anyway, he has some visions. He goes out to this farm in the middle of nowhere, has this vision. He sees this table in this old abandoned house with all these dead people. It's kind of weird. And he sees he visions all these people. So then he goes around, he starts finding all these people. And he's like, you need to go on this vision, you need to go on this voyage with me. They go on this voyage out in the middle of the sea. They come across this crazy island. One of the things I thought they could have pushed a little further was they get on this island, and essentially they get trapped in this sort of mountain or whatever. And they finally figure out that, like, hey, the only way we're going to get out of here is if we, put our differences aside, work together, and become one. And they eventually do that, almost to the... I wish they would have kind of went a little further with maybe them almost, killing themselves, because they see, relics and, skeletons of old people who were there, and they never put their differences aside, and they killed each other. So I wish they would have taken that a little further with maybe some fighting or some infighting or arguing or whatever. And then that realization that, hey, we're only going to get out of here if we put our differences aside and let bygones be bygones, and they do. And then you see this kind of weird alienistic transformation, and I'm assuming they get teleported to Jupiter or one of Jupiter's moons, Because you see like the planet Jupiter like off in the background, you're like, okay, and then they didn't really go into how they got their powers, but they essentially come back and they get the powers. They're like, hey, we're superheroes. We can fly. We can read people's minds. We got super strength. We can run real fast. We got all these kind of powers, and it just kind of happened like that. And I'm like, okay, it'd have been nice to see maybe them developing the powers. Did it just happen overnight? Like, we don't really know. And then they form the Union of Justice. They essentially establish these codes, which, like I said, will always, keep them from being dictatorships, and will never essentially allow one of them to maybe overthrow a government or something like that. Cool. But the story as a whole definitely could have been better. I thought there was a lot of wasted space with just, showing how the kids have rebelled and are trying to live up to the expectation. Because I think the story, yes, the story is about the kids, but I think the story is more so focused on the remaining members of the Union of Justice and what they're going through. You could have had a later episode with, in my mind, it's like the first season I think should have been the whole flashback thing. You could have added a lot more to that. You could have dove into each character a little more. Because I think Blue Bolt, you don't even see him till like the end, You maybe could have had a little more with Walter and Sheldon, maybe the two of them arguing, getting into it more, whatever, So yeah, in my opinion, I think the first season should have just been that flashback back in the Depression eras, the death of the father, that kind of thing. Expand the voyage a little more, dive a little more into Sheldon sort of, going crazy and all that kind of stuff. Because that's what I enjoyed most about it, Then yeah, you can do your, fast forward, and I think what would have been better is do a like present day, but do like flashbacks to when like, I don't know, their first big mission, because they talk about World War II, and the decisions they made then, how they could have stopped World War II, but they didn't want to step in and like overthrow the government. That was really cool. So I thought like that would have been better for like season 2. Do present day, and then do your flashbacks to like some of their big missions and maybe their first missions, their early missions, and how the team, how well the team works together, that kind of thing, right? See, and then maybe at the end start to see the rebellion of the kids. Start to show, the changing of the times. Just because, yeah, the times essentially suck. The code's not working, but I didn't think there was like, yes, there's a lot there, but it just didn't seem like there was a lot there, if that makes sense. You have essentially a kind of a twist. Even give me, maybe season 3, maybe give me sort of a, the whole dynamic where, Star Fox is just not feeling like, hey, I'm tired of the code. I don't want to do this anymore. This code isn't working. Essentially, from my understanding, he's the one who sees it first. Like, this code isn't working. So he essentially, goes and does his own thing. Essentially becomes their greatest enemy. Like give me some of that. And there really wasn't a lot of that. Hopefully there will be. At the end, you get a twist. You find out Walter essentially was responsible for, oh God, what was his name? Black Star, essentially escaping from prison. We thought he got killed. Turns out there was a clone somehow. You didn't really get an explanation of that either. Because you thought Brandon kills him, and you found out he's a clone of Black Star. Black Star's still in prison. You don't really know how. They didn't really explain any of that till like the end, and it was done real quickly. But eventually, you find out Walter is, going forward, as he is the new, or he's going to be the new big bad. His brother is unaware of it. he's essentially tired, and he's kind of fed up the same way Sky Fox was. That, hey, you know what? The only way to change things is to overthrow my brother. So he's got to be the one to essentially, take him out. Can he do it? I don't know. We'll see. But what else? Hopefully, if it does, I guess down the road, and I mean like way down the road, because I don't see anytime soon like anyone really knocking off Sheldon or the Utopian. That's his name in the show. I don't see that. Maybe if anyone I see doing that is maybe his son Brandon. His brother is powerful, Walter, Brainwave, but like none of his powers really work on Sheldon. So I don't know how that's going to work. You know. So I guess we'll just see what happens down the road. I don't know. Maybe you guys have heard anything about a season 2. All in all, I enjoyed it. Yes, I thought there was a lot of things that could have been done better, but overall, if there's a season 2, I'm definitely going to watch it. But as I said about 20 minutes ago when I started this video, for those of you who are coming over from Invincible, I can honestly see how you could be disappointed. This is not Invincible. This is not. So go into it with an open mind, guys. Like I said, I really enjoyed the sort of early, depression flashback scenes the most. I thought that's where you had a lot of the essentially, development of the characters. I just like that time period to begin, to be honest with you. So we'll see what happens going forward. We'll see what happens in the next seasons. So I'll leave it there, guys. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment down below. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. And let me see what we got coming up. I know we got Bad Batch episode 5 coming soon. We may just do 4 and 5 together. I know we may have missed it, an opportunity to do 4, so we'll probably do 4 and 5 together. So stay tuned for that. The Eternals trailer dropped. I have something I want to say about that too. And Loki's probably the biggest thing coming. So stay tuned for all that stuff, guys. Like I said, I'll leave it there, and I'll talk to you guys down the road. Bye.